Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining today's webinar, all about the Capture One catalog and how to manage that and get the best out of it for organizing your work. If this is your first webinar, just so you know who you're listening to, my name is David. I'm part of the software marketing team based out of Copenhagen in Denmark. Today, we're probably going to last for around 60 minutes, I would think, as there's quite a lot to cover on the subject of catalogs, especially as there's lots of new stuff to add to compared to Capture One version 7. You are very welcome to ask questions throughout today's webinar. If you're on your Mac or PC, if you look at the bottom of your GoToWebinar control panel, you'll see a section where you can enter a question and that will come through to me. I see some of you have already done that. Thank you. If you're on your iPhone, iPad, Android device, you'll see an icon, looks like a question mark. Tap that and again, you can enter a question and it will come straight through to me. I am recording the session as well, so don't feel you have to try to remember everything. It's recorded right from the start to the end, and you'll get a link in a follow-up email in a couple of days' time, which gives you a YouTube link so you can watch it again at your leisure. So that's the housekeeping side of things done. So let me just switch over to my Capture One screen, which you should be seeing round about now, hopefully. And we can get started. To aid you in where the mouse is going to be, if you look where those crosshairs are, then that's where the mouse is going to be on screen, just to help you locate what's happening. So we're going to come back to this catalog shortly. But what we're going to do is actually start from scratch, make a new catalog, get some images into the catalog, do a little bit of organization, etc., and just explain how everything works. And that's much easier to do from the start than working with an existing catalog. Good question already from Dominic regarding Capture One 8 and Yosemite. Yosemite being OS 10.10. I would say don't upgrade yet. We don't officially support Yosemite until the next version of Capture One is out. Having said that, some people are using Yosemite and Capture One with no problems at all, but it is going to depend largely on your configuration. So if you do want to have a professional, reliable system, then wait until we launch Capture One with official support for Yosemite. Okay, so just to explain what's going to happen, if we just go to the Finder for 1 minute, I'll just show you that I've got a USB drive attached here, which has a number of folders in it, but I'm going to be importing just this folder set here, which has 3 subfolders in it, which contain various images like so. So therefore, this is just basically the small set of images that we're going to import into a brand new catalog. So by doing that, first of all, when you're in Capture One, if you haven't used Capture One before, when you first start up, you'll have an option to just run with a new catalog straight away. But at any point, you can say File, New Catalog. This is one of the unique things about Capture One. You can actually work with multiple catalogs at the same time if you wish. So if you want to organize your work in various different catalogs, you can do so, and it's easy to have 10 catalogs open in Capture One at a time if you wish, but that's entirely up to you. Or of course you can have one catalog which archives all your work. There's no right or wrong answer to what's the best way to do it. It's entirely up to you. The disadvantage of having lots of catalogs means if you want to search for an image, you can only search in one catalog at a time. Obviously, if you have one catalog with all your images, then it becomes very simple to search for everything. So, new catalog. Dialog opens. First of all, we're going to give our catalog a name. I'm just going to call this webinar catalog. Underneath is where you want to store that catalog. Now, at this point, this isn't where the images are going to be stored. This is where the catalog database is stored. So this database tracks the location of your images. It has information about various adjustments on all the images, all the keywordings, and so on and so forth. If you want to change the location of that catalog, by default, that just goes into the pictures folder. You can click this button right here, and then you can choose a new location for your catalog, for example. Open a new window. I just check that, show you what happens, and we say OK. So now we have a brand new empty catalog right here, which we can begin to build up. The only thing that we've created so far, if we just go back to our Finder and to our pictures folder, is this. So it's the phase 1 or Capture One catalog database. See, barely any size because we don't have any images referenced in this catalog as yet. But that's the only thing we've created so far. But you see I've got 2 catalogs open right now, and you could have several catalogs open if you wish. Which Piero is asking, so a catalog could be created for any single client or customer. Yes, if you want to. As I said, there's no right or wrong answer. If you want to have one catalog with all your images, then fine. If you want to divide your catalogs by year or by client or by subject, then you could do as well. In terms of size of the catalog, Kyle is asking, no, there is no limit on size. Obviously, as the catalog gets bigger, it might take longer to start up. But if we compare this to version 7, my catalog, my personal catalog, is pretty small. It's got about 10, 12,000 images in it, I think. In Capture One 7, it would take about 1 to 2 minutes to become ready. In Capture One 8, it takes about 2 seconds. So there's a huge performance increase in catalogs from 7 to 8. So you shouldn't be put off if you need to have a large catalog. Okay, so we've got a brand new empty catalog. We need to get some images into it, of course. The way we do that, if you look up in the top left-hand corner, this means import. So with a catalog, you have to physically import images into a catalog. So we click on that, and then that opens our import window like so. We can make this a bit bigger if that helps. This is very straightforward. Basically, you just start at the top and work your way down. That's the best way to consider this window. So if we ignore what's going on with the images, let's just look at what's at the top. Import from. Where do we want to get our images from? This could be from a memory card, from a camera. It could be from a hard drive. It could be from a server. It could be anywhere that has images. So as I said before, I'm going to just say select folder so you can see the workflow. Image drive, remember this is an external USB drive I just have attached, and I'm going to go to Capture One Pro 8 demo. This has 3 subfolders inside like so. And let's say open. And then the important thing is here is that I've got include subfolders checked. If I didn't have that checked, then I wouldn't see any images because I'm not looking at the subfolders. If I check that, then you see the images are read from all the various subfolders. So the point of this is that if you have an existing structure on like a server or an external hard drive or whatever, you don't have to change anything. All you need to do is target the top folder, make sure include subfolders is checked, and that way Capture One will simply reflect what you have on your hard drive, and you'll see that after the import process. Okay, couple of questions. Yes, can you consolidate several small catalogs to one? Yes, we'll have a look at that later if there's time. Can you filter out JPEGs on import from memory card? Yes, you can. That's a setting elsewhere in the software, but I'll show you that. If I forget, Jan, remind me, and then I'll show you. But yes, it is possible. So that's simply that. Choose the location, include subfolders or not. Next, where do you want to store the files? Now, current location means they're simply going to stay on that external USB drive, but Capture One will know how to access them. That's probably the choice that most of you are going to be using. If you've come from Aperture, then there is an option called Inside Catalog, and this is managed files. So this means if we choose that, they are physically copied. Let's see if I just bring up the Finder. It means they are physically copied inside here. So just like it was working with Aperture, you could copy files inside the catalog file itself. Now, the advantage of that means it's very simple. You don't have to think about organization. Capture One takes care of that for you. But you're limited by how much space you have on the hard drive where the catalog is. If that's on some big external, 10 terabyte drive, then fair enough. But if, like me, you keep the catalog on your internal drive, then it doesn't make so much sense. And the nice thing is about the way the Capture One catalog works is that offline files, for example, and I'll show you later, if I disconnect that hard drive, we can still access all the images, make adjustments, and so on. So that's your choice whether you want to move inside the catalog or leave them at their current location. Okay, so current location, I'm going to do that. Collection, you see recent imports only. Basically, if you have some albums already set up, something else we'll look at, you can automatically add images to a selected album, or you can simply say recent imports only, like so. If you wish, you can do a backup at the same time. If you want to copy the raw files to another location, you can add some basic metadata here, just copyright and description. If you wanted to. What makes more sense is that if you want to add like a complete metadata list, like your name and address, copyright information, all that kind of stuff, then it's best to make a metadata preset, and we can look at how to do that as well. But for the meantime, I basically have a user preset here, which is called DGR Metadata 2014, and this adds basic metadata information to every single image. And we'll look at that once it's imported. So really, that's all you have to do about importing. Where are your images coming from? Where do you want them to be copied to? Either stay in their location or go inside catalog. You would use this option, choose folder, if you were going from a memory card and you wanted to copy it to the hard drive. You wouldn't say current location if you were importing from a memory card. Backup if you wish, basic metadata if you wish. Add an adjustment or preset. You can also add styles. So if you wanted to add your own Capture One style on import, you could do as well. And a Capture One style is just a collection of adjustments. And that can be really handy. If you like have a base set of adjustments that you use on all your images, then you can apply that on import. So I use this just for adding basic metadata, but you could add a style as well. That's all we need to do. And let's just say import like so, and you'll see the thumbnails pop up, and there's an activity window just running, which is basically generating our previews. The time that you see here is incorrect. We need to sort out our progress bars a bit better, but these will be done in roughly a minute or so. Loris is asking, are the images imported as DNG? Nope, we do not convert to DNG. We stay with the manufacturer's raw data. Converting to DNG, in our opinion, doesn't actually make any sense. Converting from one raw format to another. We've got all the information in the manufacturer's raw file, which we can use to get the best image quality. So there is no conversion to DNG. Ilan is asking, is there a performance difference between storing in the catalog or in an existing location? Not really. I guess if your images were on a really slow external kind of USB 1 hard drive, then yes, there would be a performance implication, I guess, for like exporting and things like that. But in reality, there probably isn't much difference. What makes more sense is that this part, the webinar catalog, the catalog DB, this makes sense if you have that on fast drive, like in this case, it's on the internal SSD. So it's really quick to open images, browse, and so on and so forth. So that makes more sense to have those images on an external SSD. I don't know how fast you can view the webinar in terms of frame rate, but I'm flicking through these at super fast speed, and it doesn't take any time to bring them up as such. So I think if you can have the catalog on the fastest drive possible. Yes, we can add keywords. We'll have a look at that later as well. There is an auto adjust. Yes, Nicholas was asking. Down here you see auto adjust. That actually works really well in Capture One. So that would just do basic adjustments to the various parameters that you see up here, up the top, depending what you've got checked. John is asking, does the add metadata option add this to the raw file? No, an important thing to note about Capture One is that we never edit the raw file. We don't write anything into the raw file, we don't adjust it or anything, and that's for security, so that your raw file remains untouched. So if we look at this image, for example, I added my basic metadata. And that just shows up in this tab here. This is the metadata tool tab. And if we scroll down, you can see that was the metadata that was added as part of my metadata preset, like so. So now on every single image, that basic metadata is there. Okay, just reading a question from Andreas. Does the catalog file size leaving the pics on the current location depend on the amount of pictures which are in it? Yes. What was happening when we imported, you saw a brief progress bar that was saying making previews, basically building previews. So this means that whenever you import an image into Capture One, we build a really nice high quality preview of the image. So when you're making adjustments, we're actually adjusting the preview image. For example, we don't actually have to access the raw file until we zoom into 100%, for example, then we need to access the raw data. But while we're browsing around images, for example, we're looking at a very high quality preview image. When we zoom, that's when we need to access the raw data. These are smart previews. So if I just show you this very quickly, if I go to my hard drive and let's just disconnect it like so, and then I'm going to unplug it too for good measure. You see now all the images have a little question mark icon on them. Sorry, question mark icon. If I open one up, then you see it's marked as offline because I don't have access to the raw data anymore on that external hard drive. But we can still make adjustments. So you see here, I can still play around with all the various different tools. I can still add keywords and metadata, or I can still do organization and so on. The only thing I can't do is make an export because I don't have access to the raw data. But you see, it's perfectly possible to adjust, pretty much use any of the tools to do various things in Capture One. So all these previews are smart previews as you might know them in Lightroom, for example. As soon as I reconnect my hard drive, I'll just do that now. You'll see once it comes in, yes, Thierry, you can't zoom in anymore because you don't have the raw data. So now the hard drive is accessed. We don't have our offline tag anymore, and we don't have the question mark in the thumbnails once more. So they're all smart previews. Now, the more images you add to the catalog, obviously the bigger this gets. So I've added how many? 39 images, and my catalog is up to 55 megabytes because that's holding all the previews for every single image. So as you add images to the catalog, this grows. You can influence the size of the preview if you want. I would suggest you simply leave it on the default setting, which is under image, I think. See, preview image size by default is 2560 pixels across. If you're working on a massive 8K monitor or something, then you might like to have that bigger, but for most of us, 2560 does the job. Okay. Nicholas is asking, how do you zoom so fast and direct to 100%? A couple of ways. If you've got the pan tool on, that's H. By clicking H on the keyboard, double click takes you to 100%. Double click takes you back out. Up here where the big head and the small head is, you can click the big head once. That takes you 100%. That takes you to fit. Or you can use good old Photoshop shortcuts. Option Command 0 is 100%. Command 0 is fit screen. So lots of different ways to do it. Okay, now we've imported images into our catalog. Let's look at the way the organization library side of things works. So your first tool tab over here is called library, funnily enough. Now we can see if we just start at the top up here, we've got 3 different sections in the library tool. We've got catalog collections, user collections, and folders. Let's look at each one individually. Catalog collections, the items that you see in here are fixed. We can't change them. So they're basically they're handy shortcuts. So the first one is all images. So this shows us every single image in your catalog, regardless of where it's stored. Doesn't matter if you have images on different hard drives, if some are stored inside the catalog or if some are stored outside the catalog. Every single image that this catalog knows about will be shown here when you click all images, and it shows you the complete count of all the images in your catalog. Recent imports, like so. So that means on the 22nd of October at 10 minutes past 9, we imported 39 images. You'll see the last 10 imports here. That's really handy because if you come back from a job with multiple memory cards, then you can see the contents of each memory card as you imported them. Then you've got recent captures. You can shoot tethered into a catalog if you wish. Then you've got the trash where you've deleted items. User collections we're going to come back to. Folders you see here, this shows you the exact location of where your images are. It's really, really simple. So if we look at my external USB drive, image drive new, this is the folder we imported, Capture One Pro 8 demo, and it had 3 subfolders in it: black and white, clarity, HDR. So you can see here that we've got black and white, clarity, HDR. So it represents it exactly as it does in the Finder. Now, by default, you'll only see the top level of the storage medium and the final location of where images are. If you want to see the complete tree or hierarchy, if you just do a right click on the hard drive, you can say show folders hierarchy, and now you'll see the exact hierarchy like so. So we know that on image drive new, we have Capture One Pro 8 demo, clarity, HDR. Very simple. That's images stored in their current location. Drew is asking, is there an easy way to repair a link if you need to correct mistakes in file names or folder names? Yes, I'll show you how you can relocate and synchronize stuff and so on. Brian's asking, how is it best to move files within folders? Well, very simple. You can do it 2 ways. The best way to do it is if you take an image, let's say we wanted to move this one, we simply drag and drop and do it like so, and then it physically moves it on the hard drive. There he is now, you see. And then of course if you wanted to move it, you can move it back like so. That could be a shift select. So if you wanted to do shift select, you could move 3 images around. Let's move that to HDR. This is physically happening on the hard drive. So you see now HDR has those, which file name was it? Number 766, for example, now has, where is it as such? Oh, black and white, I'm looking, sorry. Wrong folder. 766 now is in the black and white folder. So moving things around in the folders area physically moves them on hard drive. That's a very important thing to remember. Now, let's say I do this outside of Capture One, which of course you may well want to. Let's take number 766 and move that to the clarity folder, like so. Now, if we go into Capture One, you see this has a question mark because it's not where Capture One is expecting it. So what we can do is just simply right click and say locate, like so. And then it's asking us where this particular file is. So we moved it to right here. So all we need to do is highlight it and say open. And then now it's back into wherever it was. Can't remember where we put it after all that. Yeah, but that's the way to relocate stuff. So simply right click and locate if an image is missing. You can locate whole folders. So if you accidentally moved an entire folder, you can locate that if you wish. So that's no problem at all. So if, for example, in the Finder we moved this folder to a completely different location, then you could simply locate an entire folder as well. Very simple. A couple of questions about Media Pro. Media Pro still exists. Media Pro is purely an asset management application, and it will manage assets from images to Word documents to PDF files and so on. Capture One is a raw converter and asset management application, but only for images. So it depends what your needs are. If you need to reference images, PDF files, Word documents, then MediaPro might make sense for you. If you only want to catalog images, then it might make more sense to use Capture One. So that's up to you. Thierry is asking, can we synchronize images? Yes, you can as well. So let's just take 3 images here in the HDR folder, and let's just move them out of the folder. So now if we look at HDR, we can see that we've got some question marks here, like so. So what I can do is just simply synchronize. So I can right click and say synchronize. You'll see a little pop-up and it will say remove 3 missing images from the catalog. If you want to, you can see what the missing images are, but you can just say sync like so, and then the folder is updated. If I move these images back in to the HDR folder like so, and do this again, right click and say synchronize, then it will say import 3 new images into the catalog. You can see the whole importer dialog if you wish, or you can simply just say sync, and then those images pop back up like so. And now we can see them back in the HDR folder like so. So you can synchronize. You could actually synchronize this entire folder and subfolders as well. So if I said synchronize, then nothing happens because it's all up to date. You see it says here include known subfolders. So if you've done lots of messing around in these various subfolders, you could simply say synchronize, and then it will all get nicely realigned again. So it's pretty easy to do synchronization. Also in the folders tool, remember we spoke briefly about Aperture, and if you were used to using Aperture and using managed images, remember you can do the same in Capture One in the import process if you wish. If at some point, let's say I'm going on a trip and I want to take some images with me to work on them, of course, I can do that on the offline files, but as some of you pointed out, you can't zoom in and you can't export because you don't have the raw data. So what you can do, let's just take the top 3 images. You can physically move them. If we drag and drop them to the catalog icon like so, this will physically move those images inside the catalog like so. So now these reside inside this one here. So they are always available. Even if I ejected that hard drive, then I would have these because they are now inside the catalog itself. You can also go in the other direction, so we could take these images and we could drop them, move them like so, back to the external drive. So you can always easily swap in between referenced images and referenced images and managed images just by moving them from their folder location to inside the catalog. It's really, really simple to do that. Brian was asking, is it best to reorganize in the Find It and Synchronize or reorganize in Capture One? Doesn't matter really, Brian. It's up to you. I prefer to do it in Capture One because then I don't get confused. You could argue if you're faster at working in the Finder, it could be a bit quicker and then just do a synchronize, but there's no advantage, disadvantage to doing one or the other. It's entirely up to you. Yes, we can import a Lightroom catalog, and we shall look at that later. I'm going to do an Aperture catalog, but it's the same thing as doing Lightroom. Good question from Jiten. What happens to the adjustments if I move images around? Doesn't matter at all. The adjustments is always sticky with the image. So if we take this one, for example, and we just we've already done highlight recovery. Let's have a bit of clarity. Let's rotate it because I didn't really get it very straight. And yeah, we'd stick it at that. So we've moved that image around. Let's take it from here to clarity and then open it back up, and you can see it has all those adjustments. So you're free to move images around anywhere because the catalog knows that DSC 1742 has a certain set of adjustments. It doesn't matter where you move it to. Yana is asking, if you move an image, is it a copy or the original? It's not a copy. When you drag images around from folder to folder, let's just do it again, you're moving images, because in any asset management application, what you're trying to do is to prevent duplicating raw files, because it's a complete waste of time to do that. If you want to experiment with different adjustments on the same image, you simply make a new variant, you clone it. So that just basically gives you a virtual copy, but it doesn't actually copy the raw data. But whenever you move an image from folder to folder, it's physically moving it from folder to folder. It's not a copy. Even if we took an image and we put it to inside the catalog, that's a move. That's really important. That's a move. It's not a copy. So when we do this, we're always moving. So just remember that. Okay, final thing to do in the folders tool, you'll see a plus and a minus button. Don't confuse this with importing. This is just asking the catalog to recognize another location, a folder location, because we're in the folders tool. So let's say I say plus. Oh, didn't click. There we go. Let's say plus. Let's make a new folder in here. And let's just, for the sake of argument, I'll just call this selects or something, and say add down here. Now you see I have a new folder which the catalog recognizes. Then I'm free to drag and drop images into it, for example. But that's the idea of the functionality of the plus and the minus. It adds a folder that the catalog recognizes. It's not for importing images, or it's not for saying plus and then trying to import images that kind of might be here, for example. It's not an import process. It's simply adding a folder that will recognize, for example. So if I pick this folder and say add, like so, then we don't get any images in there. It's not an import process. I wonder if I say synchronize, yeah, I can do it that way. That will import images into like so. We can do it that way if we wish, but that seems a bit silly. You just might as well go through the import process. So that really covers the folders tool. Remember, everything is a move when you're dragging and dropping between different folders. You can go from referenced images to managed images by simply dragging and dropping them to the catalog icon. Remember, that is a move option. You can ask the catalog to recognize additional folders by using the plus button. And remember, you can synchronize by right-clicking to keep a folder up to date with its contents, whether that's adding new images or removing images that you've taken away if you were in the Finder. This is all exactly the same for Windows as well. I know we're on a Mac here, but that's no different to Windows. Okay, let's go back up to all images for a second. Let's just have a quick look at the questions. Yes, Thierry, the variants or the clones are moving with the originals. Yes, they are. Yep. And I saw a couple of you ask that. So you see this one here, this box of apples. Where is our box of apples? Yeah, if I take this and drag it to selects, for example, you can see box of apples is still there. Okay. Okay, what happens if I move a clone into another catalog? You can't move images from catalog to catalog. There's no way to get an image from this catalog to that catalog. We'll look at exporting subcatalogs a bit later and merging catalogs, but you can't move. I can't like drag and drop this folder, this image from this catalog to another catalog. You can't do that. Treat catalogs as separate closed entities in terms of moving images around. Okay, not to import JPEGs, I saw that. You see in the filters tool, it is always hide JPEG files. So if you always hide JPEG files, then JPEG files are hidden in the importer, and then you'll never import them, basically. So it's in the filters tool, click on here, global filters always hide JPEG files. Then they're ignored from the import window as well. Can you automate synchronizing a folder? No, you have to physically say synchronize. It's not an automatic process. Okay, let's have a look at user collections. Right here. So user collections, let's go back up to all images. Incidentally, you've seen me flick quickly between seeing thumbnails and seeing the viewer. You can do that. You see show viewer. I've got a shortcut which is simply G on the keyboard. The default system shortcut is Control Option Command V, which I think is pretty inefficient. The good thing about Capture One, fortunately, is that you can edit your keyboard shortcuts. So if you say edit keyboard shortcuts, you can make your whole list of different shortcuts, and I have one here. Show viewer is just G. So if I press G on my keyboard, I can simply go between grid view and main view. If I double click on any image, then it comes up in the main screen anyway. So if I double click here on the line, then it pops up like so. That's just a little side tip. So user collections, virtual organization. If you're an Aperture user or a Lightroom user, you'll know you can make things like albums and smart albums, projects, and so on and so forth. So for example, if we want to make a new album, very simple, click on the plus button and say album. And then we could call that, I don't know, let's do something basic. We call it color, like so. So now this is a virtual collection. So now we could just drag images into that album like so. Now in user collections area, we're not moving anything. This is all virtual organization. This makes it much more powerful. So we don't move anything on disk. Everything stays in its location, but these are just little virtual albums of collections of images. That's why it's called a collection. They are collections of images. If I make another one, let's make another album, and I'll call this my new portfolio, or a portfolio. Let's just look in this album. There's nothing to stop you having the same image in the same album, all virtual collections. So this is much more powerful than messing about in the folders area, I think. But it's entirely up to you. I know a lot of you like to do organization at system level. I personally do my organization at the user collections level. I think it's more powerful. Now we can also have something called a smart album, smart collection as you might know it in Lightroom. Let's just call this, say, 5-star images. And we've got some basic presets up here. So 5 stars. So the search criteria is that the rating must equal 5 stars. So the smart album populates itself based on its search criteria. So currently you can see 5-star images has got 3 images in it because 3 images match the criteria. So if I go back to all images and make this one 5-star, that's just by pressing 5 on the keyboard, this one 5-star, this one 5-star, and then we go to the smart album, then you can see we've got images in here like so. So that's the very basic user collections you can do. You can also do more complex and interesting stuff with projects, and if you've used Aperture before, then you can probably draw some synergies to it. I've played around with Aperture a little bit recently, and these aren't exactly the same, but it's probably a little bit similar. So if we just go back to our all images again and go in here, and I'm going to make a new project, and we're going to call this print show or something like that. Okay, now a project has a different icon. It looks like one of those cardboard boxes that you store files and folders in. If you try, you'll see that you cannot drag an image into a project. It needs something inside it. So if we right click on the project, we can say new inside, and we make an album. And I'll just call this images, for example. So what I could do now is drag some images that I think are going to be good enough for my forthcoming print show into that album. You can do single drags. You could do a shift click and drag like so. There's other ways to do this. For example, if I right click on it, I can actually call it the selects collection. So I think in Lightroom you have something called the quick collection. This is kind of similar, but a little bit more powerful, just involves a bit more setup. So if I say set this as the selects collection, you see it has a little kind of tray with an arrow into it. So rather than having to do drag and drop, what I can do is just use a keyboard shortcut, which is Command J or Control J. So if I highlight this image here, the frosty leaves, and say Command J, oh, it's already in there. Let's take the dog, Command J. You see the image count went up from 11 to 12. Let's take this one, do Command J, and the image count went up from 12 to 13. So if you don't like doing drag and drop, you can just select and do Command J, take the Rhino, Command J, take the lemur hands, Command J, take fashion shot, Command J, and so on. So you might prefer to do it that way. Now I have my collection here, for example. Now the nice thing about a project, again, think of it as a box that you store files and folders. It's totally isolated from anything else that's going on in user collections. So it's ignoring the Smart Album here, for example. Now, if I do this, let's do a right click on the project and say Smart Album. And I'm going to call this, say, 4-star and above. And I'm going to use a preset again, which is 4-star or higher. So the rating is greater than or equal to 4 stars, and say OK. Now it means if I want to whittle down these images here, I can say, well, I think that one's a 5-star, that one's a 4, that's a 5, that's a 3, that's a 5, that's a 5, and so on. Now, if we look at the Smart Album now, you see, it's just filtering from this particular project. So it's not taking from the whole catalog, it's just taking from the project. So this makes projects really much more powerful than just having basic albums and smart albums. So the albums and smart albums here, they pull from the entire catalog collection. The smart album inside the project only pulls from images inside the project. So that's the really great thing about projects. It makes virtual organization really, really powerful. I think that's difficult to do in organizing in the system, because this is totally dynamic. Let's say I've looked at my images here and think I must be crazy. That's definitely not a 4-star image. I can just zero it and it's gone without having to do any tricky moves on the system or anything like that. It's very simple to do this in user collections. The final thing that we can add, which is just really for a cleanup kind of thing, is if we just go back to all images, we can add something called a group. A group has no special powers as such. It's just like a folder. So if I call this personal work, for example, you see it just looks like a boring old folder. And then what you can do is you can drag various things inside it. So if I wanted a group that was personal work and a group that was professional work, then we could split them up like so. So again, I think this area is much more powerful than the folders area. Okay, let's look at some questions. Can you view TIFF files? Yes, you can. And PSD, yes, you can. Just be aware that layers, if you've got layered files, no, sorry, you can't view PSD. Yes, you can use view TIFF files. The reason why we can't view PSD is just how would we display various different layers, for example. Yes, you can edit various tool shortcuts to some extent. If you look in again, edit keyboard shortcuts, every single shortcut that there is, like show exposure warning, show grid and guides, all of this you can be edited. The only thing I really change is my show viewer, so that's G on the keyboard, for example, and I pretty much use everything else as standard. Is it possible to make an and search? Yes, so you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. So for example, if we just go back to make a smart album, if you say plus, this is all the various different search criteria you can have. So if you wanted to have a rating that was greater than or equal to 4, for example, and then couple that the date is after a certain time, and that the color tag was red, and so on. So there's no real limit to what you can do with the various things. The important one to remember is match all of the following rules. So that means that the image must be greater than or equal to 4, is after the 22nd of October, which is going to be difficult because it's the 22nd of October, isn't it? And the color tag is red, then it has to match all of those criteria. If it's any, then anything that is 4 and above is after this date or is red will be added to the Smart Album. So you want to probably make sure this is set to all. We can do some cool search stuff in the filters tool, which we're going to do now as well. But we switched to a bigger catalog for that as well. How are we doing for time? Wow, we need like 2 hours for catalogs. So let's close this catalog down, and then we'll look at the filters tool. I know that's quite a long time on the basics, but I think once you get the basics of catalog management nailed, then the rest is pretty simple. So let's do the rest of it quickly. And we'll continue. Yes, Drew, it is the right time to mention importing from Aperture. We will get to it, don't worry. Yes, Libby catalogs are available in Capture One 7. And it was a new feature in 7, but it's been much improved in 8. So this is a bigger catalog, not enormous. It's only got 600 images in it, but it gives us more scope for filtering. You can see here how I've used projects. So I've got photographers with various photographers' names. I've got features in Capture One that I like to highlight with various collections and so on. So that's one way of using that. I don't have my external hard drive attached, so you can see that we have a question mark there because it's looking for this external hard drive. But I can still do search and filtering and so on, because that's the nice thing about the smart previews. Let's just click on all images and clear that. So you can see that we've got 633 images, like so. And what we can do now is filter. We'll just do this quickly because the premise is simple. So you've got various different sections here which you can add or remove to, but it's very simple. If you want to see all the 5-star images in the catalog, click the radio button. There's all your 5-star images. If you want to see all the red tagged images, click the radio button, like so. If you want to see all the 5-star images that also have a green tag, if there is any, hold your option button down, or your Alt key, as you might know it, and click that, and that combines the two criteria. So now I'm looking at 5-star images with a green tag. To clear search criteria, click on the X button. Then we're back to normal. To add more search criteria types, click here and say Show Hide Filters. And here is what the various different filter terms you can add. So if you wanted to search by let's say camera lens and aperture, for example, we could say show me all the shots I've done with a 20mm f1.7 and all of those shots that were shot fully open at f1.7. So there we go. So you can see how fast it is because we're only searching the catalog database. I don't even have the hard drive attached for this catalog. We're only searching the database. So that's why it's really super fast. Any filtering that you do, you can convert to a collection to keep hold of it. The way you do that, click on the orange button there, right where the cursor is. And then that will bring up the active filters. So the camera lens equals f1.7 and the aperture is f1.7. So you can create a smart album from that, or you can create an album with the current set of images. If you create a smart album, it means it will be constantly active. Anything that is added to the catalog that matches that criteria will simply load into the smart album. So this is a great way of watching your photography. So if you always want to have just a really simple thing like a folder of 5-star images, so let's just do that. Let's click on that. That's all my 5-star images. Click on the orange button, create a smart album, all my best shots. Save, and then you see this is a smart album that is always going to be in your catalog, And whenever you do a prize-winning 5-star shot, it goes straight there all the time. So that's a good way of watching your photography, like so. You can't rename the color tags. I know that's something which a lot of people have requested. So I take that on board once again. No, Remco, you're not correct. You can filter images that have been edited. So it doesn't matter whether they're edited or unedited, you can always filter images. Is there a way to configure a filter where I can select vertical or horizontal? No, but that's quite a good idea. You can do, as I said, show high filters, lots of different things. So we've got, dimensions. No, we can do dimensions, but not, that doesn't really help you, to be honest. You've got format, like whether it's a raw file, what kind of raw file, and so on. Yeah, so various things, but not portrait or landscape, but that's actually a good thing to have. Search on keywords, yes, you can do. Keywords show up as a list down here. So if we go to all my images and I want to see anything that is pictures of jaguars, then like so. To add a keyword, I know we're kind of a bit time short, but to add a keyword, the best thing to do is go to the info tab. There's a keywords tool. So let's just bring up all the images. Let's clear that. What is quite handy, at the top of keywords, you can actually filter everything that doesn't have a keyword, which in my case is pretty much everything. I'm not very good at keywording. So this is all the images that don't have a keyword. To add a keyword to an image, simply highlight it, and then up in the keywords tool, we could say, I'm not a monkey expert, so I'm just going to say monkey. Separate by commas, you can then say other keywords, jungle, wildlife, and so on. So you can do basic keywords like that. When you tab out, that will be entered. It's disappeared because it's off the keyword list now. If you want to do hierarchical keywords, you can as well. So for example, if we wanted to have wildlife, you can do a greater than and then call that insects, and then you could call whatever the name of that insect is. I've got no idea. Let's call it a bug, like so. Then you can have hierarchical keywords like so. The way these show in the keywords tool, so if we just scroll down to wildlife, let's clear our search term. Where do keywords go? Keywords, here we go. So you can see how hierarchical keywords work. Birds, insects, reptiles. So if I wanted to look at all my wildlife shots, I could choose the top tier. We could look at birds only, and then we could look at buzzards only, which is all there is. Or you can see reptiles and so on. So you can do hierarchical keywording as well. I probably need to do a whole webinar on keywording, to be honest, but that gives you the basics of it. Oh, Remco is saying, I want to see images that I have not worked on yet. No, you can see processed or unprocessed if that's any help, but not images without adjustments. Okay, so because we're a bit time short, I could speak for more on that, but there's a couple of other things we need to do. So we will look at importing Aperture and Lightroom. We'll just look at now exporting a subcatalog. That's really easy. So let's say you wanted to make a subcatalog from a collection. Pick your collection, right click and say export as catalog, like so. It'll ask you to give the name of a catalog, Tamiola. Where do you want to save that? You can include the originals. So if you want to, if you check that box, it will copy the originals inside the catalog. So if you want to send a catalog to someone else who has Capture One 8, then you could export a catalog with the originals, managed originals, and they could look at it, they could make adjustments to it and send it back to you. So it kind of is a way to make catalogs transportable. If I say export as catalog, like so, it'll do a little whir around. It says the raw file for those images can't be found, but if I say export anyway, it's just going to make me the database. That's done. So now in the Finder, you can see I've got my separate catalog called Camille, like so. So obviously that makes more sense to do it when you have the raw files. To combine catalogs, you can simply say import a Capture One catalog, and then you can choose your catalog, and then that will, so like our earlier webinar catalog, for example, let's just bring that in. So if I say import catalog, Capture One catalog, choose our webinar catalog that we had earlier and say import. See, now this is good because it's found some images that are in the webinar catalog that are also in my catalog. So what we can do is actually say all, and then it will make a new variant if the adjustments are different. Or we can say keep the ones in the existing catalog, or keep the images in the imported catalog. So this is good. If you kind of made this subcatalog export, sent that to a retoucher, and they made some adjustments and then sent it back to you, if you said all, like so, then what would happen is that you'd be able to see basically the images with the two different sets of adjustments. So you see what it's done, it's created extra variants for the images that had a conflict, for example, like so. So simple as that. If you want to import a Aperture or Lightroom library, let's just make a new catalog. I'll call this Aperture, like so. So same goes for Lightroom. It's exactly the same principle. So let's say File, Import Catalog. You have to specify whether it's Lightroom or Aperture. So I'm going to say Aperture. This is important, so you get a window here that tells you what we can import. We can import things like the cropping, rotation, color tagging, metadata, all that important stuff. It would be awful if you had to do that all over again. Some basic adjustments, like exposure compensation and so on. Please remember, if you are an Aperture or Lightroom user, we can't match exactly the look you get in those two applications because every processing engine is different. Of course, I'm going to say ours is superior. So of course, we're going to better what you can get in Lightroom and Aperture. So it's only an approximation, but the mundane stuff of keywording, star rating, and so on is done. So that's important. So if I say continue, like so, it'll ask me for my Aperture library, like so. And I'm going to say open. And then it's saying that it can't find various files. So I've done this on purpose. So if there's an image that it can't find, it will say it's offline. So I'm just going to say skip all. And then it'll do an import. It says 44 files imported. None of them were incompatible. 16 offline files that couldn't be found were skipped. And let's say OK. And now you can see I've got all the images here. You can see as the previews are getting built, you'll be able to see that. See the crops being applied, the crop. We've got star ratings, we've got color tags. I had a project in Aperture which is represented here. And basically that saves you a lot of work. Now, if we look at where it is, so we've got some images there like so. So very simple. Now, because you're some of you Aperture users, you see this looks like a really long tree here. But what I also did on purpose with this Aperture library is that I had 34 images stored on the USB drive, and I had 10 images as managed files in Aperture, so stored in the Aperture library. Now, when you import an Aperture library or a Lightroom library, we don't move any images. They stay exactly where they are. So if you wanted to, you could carry on using your Lightroom library and you could carry on using your Capture One library, looking at the same images, because we don't move anything, we don't change anything on the raw data. Just be aware that we don't move the ones that are inside the Aperture library. So if you wanted to, you would then have to take those images that are inside the Aperture library and move them inside the Capture One library if you wanted to. Or you could move them to a different location or whatever. I've done this just to illustrate that we don't move any images at all. Same goes if you want to import for Lightroom. Instead of picking the Lightroom, the Aperture library, you're looking for the Lightroom.lrcat library, .lrcat. And then the same thing happens. Again, we only approximate color, but we do all the stuff like, as you can see here, whoops, You see we've got the crop on this particular image, the star rating and the color tag and so on. So it's pretty simple. If you've got tons and tons of images, that's obviously going to take longer because we build a new preview for every single image. So if you've got 10,000 images, just set it up running after dinner and then let it chug away overnight or whatever to rebuild all the previews. Okay, nearly time to go. There was a few questions about sessions. What's the difference? A session is another way of organizing in Capture One. It's totally different. So a catalog is a way of getting an overview of all your images. A session works nicely if you want to organize job to job. And it works very well for tethered shooting. What I could recommend that you do, if you go to the Capture One 8 YouTube channel, or the Phase One YouTube channel, you'll see a video there called Managing a Capture One Session, like so, and that will give you a good introduction of how session works. But it works particularly well for tethered photography, I think. You can import a session into a catalog. This is a way of archiving sessions. So you can say File, Import Session. I'm very particular when I say archiving, because it should only be done once the session is finished with. Because when you import the session into the catalog, if you make a change in the session itself, it's not reflected in the catalog. So I say it's a good way of archiving sessions if you want to see all your sessions together in one place. So yes, Peter, that's what you are asking. To move, you can remove or delete a catalog. Yes, you simply go here. This is the catalog, the export I did, and say delete, and it's gone. That's it. It's just like a file. All the catalog is a file, like a Word document or a PDF document. It's nothing more complex like that. If I wanted to move this catalog and put it somewhere else, I could still open it. I had enormous trouble moving the Aperture library, to be honest. Every time I moved it, I couldn't open it again, which was strange. But a Capture One catalog, you can simply move that wherever you wish. You can always open it, no problem at all. Can you limit the size of the cache? No, you can't. That's not a feature in Capture One. So obviously this, you see this catalog here, which has got 700 odd images in it, is a couple of gigabytes. So that will grow as the images, as the previews grow. Maybe a good feature to add in the future. Okay. Yes, Andreas, you can review this webinar. You'll get a link in a couple of days, which has a YouTube link for it. Simon's asking, if you import a session, can the original session be deleted? Again, with the import session process, we don't move anything. It's just always treated as a referenced session. So no, don't delete it unless you physically move it somewhere else within once you've got it into the catalog. Okay, we're almost out of time. Well, we are out of time. What I'm going to do is I'll, when I say goodbye, I'll just hang on the line a bit and try and answer a few more questions. There was rather a lot of you, so sorry I couldn't get to every single question. While you're here, I just want to bring up next week's webinar, which is my favorite subject. You should see something on screen now. Yes. Local adjustments. If you haven't used local adjustments in Capture One, you're really missing out. And as I said, it's one of my favorite subjects, and there's so much you can do with local adjustments. It'll save you a huge amount of time in post-production because there's so much you can do in Capture One, which you might be able to avoid doing in Photoshop. You can do dodging and burning. You can do local color, local white balance, local noise reduction, local highlight recovery, local shadow recovery. It's really powerful. Really powerful. So if you haven't experimented with local adjustments, you're really missing out. So please sign up for that webinar next week. I've got the sign up link right here. So I'm going to copy paste that in the chat window. I think if you're on your iOS device, you won't see it, but you can sign up in the usual place, and I'll put the sign up link in the follow-up email as well, so you know how to get to it. As I said, I'll hang on for a little bit and answer a few more questions. Apologies if I don't get to everybody. We could talk for another hour on catalogs, I'm sure, but I hope that gives you the building blocks to start building your own catalog system. Don't forget our YouTube channel has lots of help on keywords, searching, filtering, catalogs, and so on. So you can always look there for more inspiration as well. So many thanks for your attendance. Hope to see you all again soon. It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you.